well.
Pat's in there, so we'll get him on board.
Aaron, you hear us now?
Yes. Yeah, I got you.
All right, good. You have a great background there.
No quality.
Yep.
All right, welcome, Pat.
Okay, we have all of our, well, we still looking for one more board member?
No, I mean, we are, but that board member hasn't been appointed yet by Bainbridge Island.
Ah, true. That's
unless
right.
that happened today.
It did not. I spoke to, anyway, go ahead. Call the meeting to order.
We'll call the meeting to order. Pat, can you hear us? Can you give recognition? Hey,
yeah,
we got some outdoor enthusiasts. That's good. That's good. All right.
Not much summer left, so I'll take advantage of it.
That's good.
Good for you.
Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order here on September 21st for the Board of Directors for the Kitsap Public Facilities District. I'd like to begin. We have two new board members who were with us for our meeting last time, Phil Havers, John Morrissey. We are waiting for who Bainbridge Island will finish out our board with as the seventh member. But one thing that I have liked doing is asking some sort of a question for the purpose of helping us to get to know each other. We all come from different communities within our county that we love here, and it's good for us to continue to get to know each other as we go through this. So the question for tonight is, a trip that you took with one of your family members that was memorable. A trip that you took with one of your family members that was memorable. So who would like to start us? Let's go with Aaron.
So a couple Christmases ago, as I was trying to settle into my little life here in Kitsap and figuring I was never going to end up traveling internationally, which is something a bunch of my family members have done, my son gave me tickets to take me to Japan to go visit with my son who was stationed there. So my older son and I went and spent 10 days literally walking around and jumping on trains and not doing a whole lot of the real tourist stuff and just seeing real parts of Japan. And I just realized that I didn't have to not travel. I just had to get on an airplane once in a while to do it.
That's fantastic. Anybody want to go next? Volunteer yourself.
I'll go next. I'll just talk about the last trip I took instead of the most memorable, because there's quite a few of those. And the last trip I took was right before the shutdown. I'm just looking at my calendar here. It would have been March 6th through the 9th. I went to I flew into Denver, but to Fort Collins, Colorado. Got to meet my newest niece for the first time and my nephew as well. So it was very memorable.
Awesome. Thank you, John. All right, Pat Hatchell, let's get you going.
Okay, probably the most memorable was a couple years ago. My wife and I went to Maui with a bunch of friends, and all three of my adult kids were able to come there, which we don't usually get them all together. So
that's very cool. That's very cool. Walt.
Well, some years ago, not too long ago, my late wife Nancy and I made a trip with a total of 10 couples, including 3 of my roommates from the Naval Academy and their wives. And we flew to Athens and we rented a 130-foot yacht. Sailing yacht, and sailed the Greek Isles for a week. The yacht was called the Aegean Lady, and we had a 4-man crew. We had a captain and his wife and 2 deckhands. The wife took care of the cooking. The captain didn't do anything but stay on the bridge in his undershirt and his Greek seaman's hat and smoke cigars, and the wife did all the work.
I wish I had a microphone so I could just drop it at that one.
Yeah.
That's
And
incredible.
he would say things like, when you go ashore today, leave your staterooms unlocked. The woman, she cleans. Do you have anything you'd like for dinner tonight? We're going to the grocery. The woman, she shops.
This was his wife?
It was his wife he was talking about.
All right. Well, 130-foot yacht in outside of Greece. That's
That's a
incredible.
topper.
It was fun.
Yeah. Phil.
So a couple of years ago, my wife and 2 kids and I went over to Slovenia and Croatia, just not an area we'd ever been to before, but it was fantastic. One of the best trips we've taken, and went down to the islands down there, rented a place there, stayed in the old Roman ruined town of Split, went up, saw some of the white horses up further north, in Slovenia. It was a fantastic trip, just something totally different, and this an area I'd never really seen before.
Wow. I had a roommate in college who was from Croatia, or not a roommate, a good friend in college who was from Croatia. He had all these great pictures of the beaches near his home, and it blew my mind. I wasn't aware of the connection between Croatia and these beautiful, beautiful places, these beaches. Mike, would you like to join in the party?
Yeah, I would like to. Although I've lived and worked a couple of times in Europe, which was fantastic. Actually, the most memorable trip that I ever took was when I was about 11 or 12 years old. My family moved from this area, from Puget Sound, back to the suburbs of Chicago when I was about 10 years old. And every year the family would take alternating a car trip, and then the other year a railroad trip, and back and forth between Chicago and Washington. One of the railroad trips, we were on the way back heading east on the Union Pacific, and the train engineer apparently was trying to make up time because he was going like a bat out of hell through a thunderstorm, and unfortunately hit a patch of track that had washed out from a creek, the river that had run over its bank and washed out the track. So this 12-car diesel coast-to-coast passenger train wound up with 7 of the 12 cars on their side in the middle of a muddy field in Montana. But there were 5 cars that remained intact on the rails. And the car that my family had their staterooms in was in the center car of those 5 cars. And as it turns out, my sister who was 2 years older, was walking down the aisle when it hit the washout, and she got thrown up against the wall, bruised her head, knocked her out. She was laying on the floor. My mother got knocked around a little bit inside the restroom, but it wasn't too bad because it turns out she was sitting on me, who got thrown down on top of the commode in the restroom, and she was sitting on top of me. So I didn't get injured because I was pinned in place. But it was quite an experience because, we could walk up to the disconnected car and look out over the muddy field and see the cars up in front. Turns out there were no fatalities. There was a guy in the kitchen car that got stuff spilled on him and got burned, and somebody else that got a broken ankle or a broken leg. So, it was amazing. It wasn't worse than that. But that was quite an experience for an 11 or 12-year-old kid.
Wow. Brian, how about you?
Sure. So like some of you, I've got adult children, and it gets harder and harder in life to get them together to do things with. I've got 3 boys, but I think the thing that's been really fun for us was to do a river trip on the Middle Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. 5 nights, 6 days of rafting with guides who take care of everything. So you just get up in the morning, there's coffee and food, and you get out in the river. And if you want to fish, you're in one boat. And if you want to paddle, you're in another boat. And if you want to kayak, you're in another boat. And you do that for 3 or 4 hours. You stop for lunch. The guides get out, fix nice lunches. You swim a little bit, get back in the boat, do the same thing till about 4 or 5. Then you get out. One guide's gone ahead, has set up the camp, and it's cocktail hour. It's pretty sweet. So, and it's wilderness. So your cell phones don't work, which is wonderful. There's no distractions. It's just pure family time. So I've enjoyed that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool. All of this was a setup, of course, because I took a really cool trip with my son right now. So I just kind of wanted to talk about it. But he's 21 now, but about a year and a half ago, he said, "Hey, Dad, I think we should walk across the Olympic Peninsula. We'll touch salt water on one side, and then we'll walk through and we'll touch it on the other side." And so he and I did that in the end of August. And so I thank you all for, we canceled that meeting because I was not going to have any connection in the middle of the Olympic Peninsula. But it took us 14 days, and we backpacked all the way through, carried our food with us, did a lot of fly fishing along the way to eat as well, and a lot of berries to supplement our low calorie amount of food that we brought along. So if you're looking for a good diet, hiking through the Olympic Peninsula is a great way to do it. But what a great time to have with him, and to just share that experience and have that memory for the 2 of us. So thank you for everybody for adding in yours and allowing me to share that. With that, let's get to the approval of our minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read them? And if so, can we have a motion to approve them?
I have a question first. We had talked about some of the fund status and whether that was going to be included in the minutes. Did we decide not to do that, or?
What status were you talking?
The fund, there was we had discussed where we were with the funds and the dollar amounts available, and I know you subsequently sent an email with the information in it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I included that, but it looks like the version that I included in the packet was not the version that had that information in it. If you want to take a moment, I should be able to find that and post it if there's any other questions that you have for that.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Mike? Are there any other questions from the minutes or discussion on them?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
Can we have a second?
I'll second.
I would like to have Mike be able to put that up, since that is an important part of our discussion. I'd like to have that be recorded.
Yep. Hang on just a minute here. It's hard for me to take notes and find files at the same time, so it'll just take a second here. Okay, so we're gonna share screen and we're gonna share this one. Okay. So this was the insertion that I made in the minutes to summarize the discussion with the current balance at the time for June included the 500,000 for county parks, and the other commitments were totaled 3.4 million, and we had 3.1 that was in the bank at the time. That picture has changed slightly since then. One, the county parks has released the 500,000, so that's no longer a commitment.
Okay, so Mike, we'll get to that too, but let's just get this through on the minutes then. So are these going to be the official minutes with this info in them?
Yes, this is going to be the official minutes. I'm not sure why, but anyway, I obviously copied the wrong version into the packet that I prepared.
Okay.
This is the minutes that has the addition to it.
Okay.
And so, Mike, this version is the exact same as the minutes that we received in our packet and have read, except for just this highlighted blue section where it says note and then proceeding down to item number 5, financial reports.
Correct.
Okay. All right. With that being stated, all those in favor of approving these minutes say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right. Our minutes have been approved.
And then Mike, could you send those back out to us too?
Yes, I will.
Starting with ongoing business, item number 3, the selection of our construction consultant. Mike, will you fill us in on where we're at in that process, and then as well welcome Shannon Thompson to share with us.
Okay, let me get over here to the attendees. Shannon Thompson is there.
Darren, while we're at that, I'll just say a point of order on the agenda. There seems to be ongoing business twice on the agenda. Will we combine those here, or will we just go?
We'll go in the order that Mike Mike printed them out. But thank you for noting that there are both on item number 3 and item number 6 ongoing business with the financial reports and new business in between. Mike, was there a reason for that?
Yeah, the construction consultant item had been an ongoing business, and it was put, that one portion of it was put up at the front so that we could have the construction consultant make his presentation, and we could vote on that, and then we would continue with the other sections of ongoing business later in the meeting. So Shannon is present and visible in his Paul Bunyan beard. And let's see. Now, are you going to freewheel it, Shannon, or do you want me to put up the presentation that you submitted to us at the beginning of the process?
Well, we could put up the presentation, or I could share my screen. I've got a little bit of the same that we can talk about and talk through, whatever you'd like to do.
If you've got material and you want to share screen, go right ahead.
It says it's disabled by the host.
Uh-huh. Let's see. Is that available to you now?
Yeah, let's see. Who can start sharing when someone else does?
Because I've made you a co-host, so that you should have the same abilities as the rest of us.
Well, we'll see if this works.
There it is.
There you go.
There we go. So,
Right.
so I'm Shannon Thompson. I'm the owner of Barker Creek Consulting. I've been doing owner's rep type services for agencies since 2007 here in the Puget Sound area. My company, we basically work as an extension of staff for whatever agency that we're working for. Recently, I've worked with Central Kitsap School District, the City of Bremerton, North Kitsap School District, the University of Washington. For those types of projects, there's a few of these that were in my proposal. So this right here is the transportation and food warehouse for Central Kitsap School District. My job was to facilitate the design and construction on behalf of the owner for that role. Now, like I was saying, that the roles are always different depending upon who we're representing. But I guess the key point is that we represent the owner and their desires and whatever they're looking for. So each project my role changes a little bit with each project. While with CK, I did Clahalia Secondary School, the expansion up there, and this upper picture is a picture of Bremerton Parks that we did over on in Manette. Wait, I think this is the wrong one. This isn't the one that I wanted to pull up. This is just the proposal, the RFQ that I responded to you guys with.
Shannon, if you want, take a moment and grab the one that you wanted to.
Yeah, let me see if I can open it up here. Let's see. Strange, I just had it up. Technology, you gotta love it. That is interesting. Well, I think we'll just keep going because I'm not sure what happened to it. Anyway, so my job is to facilitate the stakeholders of any project. Currently at the University of Washington, Tacoma, I am the project manager for a 50,000 square foot academic building called the Milgard Building. And for that project, I have, I think, 6 stakeholder groups. And for that, it's a design build project. So I facilitate on behalf of the owner. And again, like I'm working as an extension of their staff, all of the collaboration that has to happen to make sure that building is what the university is going to be asking for. I also have a $7.5 million TI down there for the Learning Commons and for the additional labs that for the STEM program that they're bringing in down to UW-T. So what they're going to do is they're to be better represented in the South Sound. They've started an engineering program that is going to be accredited down in Tacoma, so you don't have to go to Seattle to go to the engineering school up there. So part of my job is to facilitate the stakeholders there, and the Learning Commons is a collaboration of 3 groups: the library, the Center for Equity and Inclusion, the Learning Center. And what we're trying to do is create a Learning Commons to better help facilitate what these groups are trying to do for the students that attend that school. We manage the budgets, we manage the architects, we manage the contractors, we do all of that stuff and do the reporting up to the Board of Regents for the university. Again, that's the role that they've asked me to serve for them on their behalf. The other projects that I've worked we work on is a CHI Franciscan. They've hired me to help facilitate them to, they have some requirements that Kitsap County has asked them to fulfill in order to get them a CO for the new hospital here in Silverdale. So if you guys are driving down the road and you have to work your way through traffic on Ridgetop, that's because of me, and I apologize for that. That project is a road widening project. I'm also, the stakeholders there are Silverdale Water District, Kitsap Transit, of course, CHI Franciscan, and Kitsap County. So there's 4 stakeholders there that I represent in making sure that the project needs are being met, and that what is going to be delivered is what was asked for. Yeah, both in the development agreement between the county and the hospital, and that all of our tax dollars are being used appropriately. So that's that project. Like I said earlier, I have some projects with the city of Bremerton. Both of those ones are park projects. One was the Manette Park, which is completed, and the other one's ongoing is Warren Avenue playfield. I've also represented folks in the private sector, like Montezuma's. If you've been to the Montezuma's in the mall, I was the owner. The owner called me. His name's Bernie, and he asked me if I would help facilitate his interests in the TI work that was happened over there. You know, we've done everything from design through construction, or we just represent the stakeholders' needs at that level to make sure that they're being met. We monitor budgets. We report up to the Board of Regents. I've worked for the Puyallup tribe. I've reported to the tribal council. Worked for City of Gig Harbor in their wastewater treatment plant facilities, Donkey Creek, the lift station down in Skansky Park, all of those high profile public projects that took a lot of stakeholder involvement, both in coordinating with the community and making sure that work is done. And within the bounds of the contract and the funding that they had received. That project had several funding sources. It was federal fish and wildlife funds, there was state funds, there were local funds, and there was a public works trust fund loan that the city had gotten. All of those funds have criteria of how they can be spent, and which we managed on behalf of the city. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I love what I do. I enjoy going to work every day. I love the challenges it presents. I like to problem solve, and I usually never go to any of my owners or stakeholders with a problem and say, what do you want me to do? I always present the issues that are at hand. I always present options, and I always make a recommendation of how I would recommend they proceed. I will never ask a client to, hey, here's a problem, what do you want me to do about it? That's not my role. You know, public agencies and stakeholders and involvements in that, I've been doing this for a long time and enjoy the challenge it serves. So I think what I'll do is I'll open it up to questions from you guys to see if you have any questions for me, and I'll go from there.
All right, anybody from the board? Question for Shannon?
I have one. Shannon, do we negotiate a fixed price with you, or are you on sort of time and materials, or how do you get compensated? How do we negotiate that?
So it's an hourly rate, and because of what the services I do, it's a time and materials type of service. Usually what we do is we with Central Kitsap, we plug in what we think my effort will be for the year. We allocate those funds for that year, and usually those funds, at least with CK, they've stretched to about a year and 3 months. Every year we're able to stretch those funds that we've allocated. You know, I'm a it's hard to say that I can do this work for X amount of dollars in the role that you serve when you're working as an extension of staff. The level of effort it takes changes depending upon the phase of the project. Is it in project definition, which is the same as schematic design? Are we in construction? Where are we at? And those level of efforts will change. Now, how we represent you will maybe a little more consistent, but there will be a time where you're going to want to say, hey, Shannon, do you want to review these documents for compliance? And that takes time to do that. So yeah, it is a time and materials type of effort, but we do try to put bookends on it. And as we burn that fuel, we re-up it for the next year, or every year we reevaluate, and that way it's fair to all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's still got his share up on the screen, and that shows the hourly charges for he and his two principal collaborators, and also what it is for what he calls construction observation.
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about my staff. I've got April, Elliott, and Cynthia, and I also have Cindy. They all work for me in different capacities, and a lot of what we do, we try to be the most cost effective with what we're being asked to do. That's why we have these project control specialists and project coordinators. Sometimes it makes sense for me to be into the details for a lot of things, but when it comes to, hey, let's get these files up to date, let's get these reports in, let's format this, we push the work down because it's cheaper to do so. And it all just depends on what we're doing. Sometimes I do all of the work, and sometimes April or Cynthia helps me. It depends on the project and what is that project scope is for each of those. Because like CK, there's a time that I had up to 12 projects at once with Central Kitsap. And when you're spanning that many projects, you need someone to help backfill, to keep things moving. My understanding of what my role would be with you, it would be a little bit different. But there would be a time that we would want to create probably some reporting up material to you guys, and Cynthia or April would help us do that. Now, construction observation, what that is that Cindy is currently doing construction observation for the hospital. What happened on that project is that the county decided that they wanted a daily construction observer on site. At first, they wanted that person to be on site full time. So that means 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, or if they're working on Saturday, someone there. But what we negotiated with the county was to have a reduced amount of presence on the site, and she produces a daily report of that activities. They're wanting that for their tracking mechanism, because what happens is at the end of that project, they become the owner. The Franciscans doing the work. Seton Constructions is the contractor. And like I said, I have 4 other stakeholders that are involved in that. And in that kind of a environment, they wanted some observation that happens. Now, sometimes that observation happens daily. Sometimes it happens a few times a week. It just depends on the needs of the project. What I do want to make clear is construction observation is not in construction inspection. We leave that to the specialists to do that. MTC, CTA, these are inspectors that come and certify that something has been done according to a spec, and that's not what we do. But we do construction observation, and with every daily report, there would be every daily observation, there would be a report generated, pictures and descriptions of what's going on. Part of that process, and I'm not sure what the pay application process would be. These are things that we'd have to learn, but I do monthly pay app reviews too, to review work completed for a lot of projects that we serve, and that they're appropriate for the month. So, and we do that through this construction observation process also.
Other questions?
I I have an internal question. Do we have a vendor due diligence policy, or is that something that Brian looks at ahead of time?
Brian, did you catch that?
I did. I didn't know if I was going to be the lead answer or not. I tend to come in at the end of the review and selection process. I do a little bit of due diligence at the end, but mostly I'm then just preparing the agreement, looking at risk management inside the document and so on.
So we as an organization don't have a policy.
Do not have a formal policy. We have a practice.
This finally came up, I guess. So these are some of the projects that I've worked on with Kitsap County. Like I was saying, this is the Operations Service Center. It was a $22 million project altogether. And then I don't know if you're familiar with the tracks and fields around town. I put in the Clahalia Stadium and at CK Stadium. I helped Sydney Thiel with that stadium also. We collaborated because we bought two of them at the same time through the government co-op. We also changed Clahalia, and you'll notice that most of the fields throughout CK are now artificial turf. We helped facilitate. We did the groundwork and came up with the spec to make those resurfacings happen. So we have new tracks and things around campus. The Clahalia project is a $25 million project. And that was to add 12 additional classrooms, 2 new locker rooms, and 2 science rooms to the existing school as an expansion. It was a construction project that was done actively while staff and students were there. And it was interesting to do that with everyone there. This one was not a GCCM project. This was a design build project. So we also did Silverdale Elementary. Now, Silverdale Elementary was kind of a tag team project. I took over the back part of that project from the previous project manager. This particular project had some turmoil between the contractor and the architect, and there was some animosity with the district too. That you could, when I came on, this was kind of went sideways, and they put me there to help right the ship, so to speak, to get this one closed out. And the interesting thing is that I was hired by Bassetti because of this project to help them in Issaquah, because they ended up with the same contractor on that project. And they were experiencing some of the same difficulties over there. And this is a design bid build project. And sometimes in that environment, things can go south a little bit with your contractors that didn't put enough money in the buckets to get done what was asked to be done. But we were able to manage it and close it out. And I don't know if many of you know about Barker Creek Community School.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So this is a wonderful addition to CK. This was the old Sprint, I believe, dial center, or it was a call center.
Yep.
It was a vacant building, and what we did is we split this building in half. We turned half of it into an administrative service building for the district called the Learning Center, and the other half, what they did is combined all the auxiliary programs into one building. So the homeschool program, the 2 alt school programs, and they created this Barker Creek Community School for non-traditional high school and grade school students. It is an amazing program, and they can actually receive their diploma from Barker Creek School now at the end of every year. So it was some of these programs are near and dear to me because of how much they've support our community, and that's really why I like working in this area, is because I get to feel the impact personally to the place where I live and my children go to school, and that we get to enjoy. So I'm sure that's why all of you are on the board, because you feel that same love and impact for our community.
For the benefit of John and Phil, who haven't any experience with this on the board, the KPFD has in the past had a construction consultant. Because we don't own and operate the facilities in which we're investing, we don't really have an quote owner's rep unquote, which actively manages or takes part in the development of the construction process. This is much more an oversight, so that we have an educated pair of eyes looking at the construction and the work on the planning and construction of the project, so that we know that the millions of dollars that we're investing are being done properly, that the goals of the project to achieve are being achieved, and that we have some independent eyes other than us as the board of directors, or me as the executive director. I've been involved in several of our projects now and have some experience in that area, but I do not profess to be a construction expert and wouldn't necessarily know if that piece of concrete needed to be 6 inches instead of 4 inches. And that's why we hire somebody who's a construction specialist to do this oversight. So it's not necessarily along the same lines that Shannon is describing, that he's served in the past, but to us it's just as important to make sure that the buildings that are built with our money serve the purpose that we intended them to serve, and that they're built with the quality that's going to last and serve the community the way we want it to be served.
Yes, that's well put. So some of the capacities, these are a lot of project management and construction type capacities that I've served in, but I've also served in other capacities. The city of Tacoma, I sat in their DCD department to help them through their design and permitting issues they had. Oh, this was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. They were trying to bring economic growth to the city, and that process seemed to be pushing people away. So they actually put us in there and assigned us projects and clients that came in to help facilitate that process. And of course, after we got this process going and we came up with a good plan, they're using that process still today. But these relationships are important in everything we do. Even with Kitsap County, I've worked with Kitsap County and for Kitsap County on projects. Like I said, they're a stakeholder on the hospital project, but they've also hired me to make sure that their interests were being met when they had several stormwater projects with Chris May. I don't know if you guys know Chris May, but he's retired now. Water quality was a big deal for him, and he fostered and championed a stormwater quality projects throughout Kitsap County, which I was blessed to be able to help him with. It was a great opportunity for me to again, not just help our community, but help our environment in our local area. So, but yeah, my capacity and my ability to serve your needs is pretty broad, and I would look forward to the opportunity to helping you do that if you choose to go with me.
Are there any other questions for Shannon? All right, Shannon, I appreciate the amount of years you've been doing this and your passion for it, which you stated, but which also comes through your voice when you're talking about it, and your breadth of experience of the number of different projects and the capacities that you've worked. So thank you for sharing with us. The process to get to this point, as we've been looking for a new construction consultant, started with having 4 different individuals or firms come forward that were interested in the position. And then both Aaron and Tom, along with Mike, served as kind of a first evaluation committee, and have put forward both Shannon and Barker Creek Consulting, as well as Rick Cadwell and the Cadwell Group. And so just this past week, we received an email and notice from Rick Cadwell just sharing that he, because of other contracts that he was awarded, wouldn't be able to serve us to the degree that he would like to for the short term here, and so has withdrawn his application. And so at this point, Shannon is our person who has presented for us tonight, has already gone through that evaluation that Aaron and Tom and Mike did. And they felt very confident in both Shannon and Rick as either one of them that would be selected by us as a board. And so at this point, I would say, can I have a motion to select Shannon Thompson and Barker Creek Consulting as our construction consultant?
I'll move.
Also a second?
I'll second.
Now, any discussion on that? Any questions that any of you have? Any conversation that you want to have? All right. Give it another second here. All right. Then all those in favor of selecting Shannon and Barker Creek Consulting as our construction consultant, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Shannon, thank you for applying for this position and for serving our community this way. We're excited to work with you.
I'm very excited. I look forward to working with each of you.
All right.
Yeah, Shannon had to change sex in order to get this bid because both Darren and I thought he was a female when we got the application. But when he came in the door as a male with a full beard, we thought, wow, look at that. A miracle. No, we appreciate your commitment to the process. It's been drawn out. It's been extended far beyond what we expected it to be. So we'll sit down and probably involve Brian as well to construct the framework within which it will work and what our expectations are, and draw up a service agreement or service contract for professional services and get this done. We are at the point where the Polsbo group is in the middle of their feasibility and community response and design stage. So we probably would like somebody to go up there, introduce themselves and say, hi, I'm the guy that's going to be looking over your shoulder. Please don't throw rocks at me, or whatever else that you need to do to ingratiate yourself with the project people up there. The Polsbo project is well on the way. So the Port Orchard project, they've selected their design person. That's Rice Fergus Miller. And they're working with them on their process. And we'll hear from them as well as from the county next week on what their progress state is. But both Polsbo and Port Orchard will need to be visited and determine exactly where they are and where you would be best applied to keep a thumb on the pulse of each of those projects, whether that comes in as a a monthly progress meeting, or whether it's, as you said, visiting with the design staff or the DCD staff in the county or whatever, to assess where the best application of your services and abilities would be applied.
Okay.
We'll also work on developing what we think the hours are going to be so that you can get an idea of what your demand is going to be, and we can get an idea of what the costs are going to be as part of that agreement. And perhaps we can arrive at a forecast for the remainder of the year or for the next 12 months, even if it's not a calendar year. But
yeah,
we'll figure that out.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for joining us. I'm going to move us on to item number 4, our financial reports.
Shannon, thank you. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
Bye-bye.
Monthly reports, the tax revenue and monthly financials. Mike, would you like to say something about this?
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me catch up to where I am here. And I need to share and bring up the board meeting packet and scroll down to the financials. And again, the continuing surprise where in the month of August, we received our portion of the sales tax from June, and it was still up 2.8% over last year. So we've undergone 3 down months, 2 fairly substantial, and then we've got this rebound. We'll continue to monitor this as we go through the remainder of the year, as the economy tends to go up and down a little bit with the number of people that are free to run around or go to events or buy things. And obviously, people are still buying things in significant numbers, even if it's not meals in restaurants or movies in theaters. The economy has switched, but it hasn't disappeared, so that's a good thing.
Darren, if I could make a comment, if you notice, the 170,000 is the most we have ever taken in any month ever.
Important comment. Well, thanks.
So the expenses during the month were $12,400. So the net to cash after our debt service was an additional $88,000 into our cash reserves. Any questions about that? Okay. On to the couple pages of financial information that I sent out to you. The first is the budget performance. If you look at the top of the sheet, the columns, the first column is the August performance compared to an allocated budget. And then the next column, the middle column, is the cumulative for the year. And if we look down at the bottom, the expenses and the net cash balance at the time, $58,000. Again, that's an allocation at the beginning of the year of $180,000. Our projected budget was 200 and some $1,000, but we typically come in under budget every year. We tend to allocate more, and there was money that was allocated for construction consulting. If you look in the middle, about the third of the way down, item number 5415, there's an allocation in there for construction consulting of at least up to this time of the year was $10,000. So we haven't spent that yet, but Shannon may be able to take care of part of that later on this year.
Well, Mike, wait a minute. The way I'm reading it, our annual budget was 10 and we have spent 63 of it. Correct?
Annual budget is what?
10,000, as you said. But January through August, it shows 62, 91, 74.
Yeah, the annual budget it was 230,000 at this
No,
point.
I'm talking about just the construction consulting.
Oh, okay. Construction consulting. Yeah, 10,000
And year to date, our budget is just at 66, well, 6,700. So we're right close to where we are on budget for spending on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go back and look at that because I'm not sure why that's 6,300. We haven't paid anything to Roar for anything that he did, so I'll have to check and see why we've got charges in 5415, because there should be minimal there, not 63. So
And
I'll
then-
check into that.
Okay, and then what's 5419 professional services? Remind me what the $18,000 is?
The 5419, that's the visit Kitsap, $2,000 a month.
Is it Kitsap?
Yeah,
So it's not budgeted in there. Where is it line item budgeted that it doesn't wash out? Under 5419, other professional services, regional center marketing, other.
yeah, that should be under the marketing portion of that,
Okay,
because that's basically what they're doing for us. The $2,000 a month is for marketing for us.
okay. So maybe going forward, we can get those two married together and then keep them both in the same line item.
Yeah.
Sounds good, Aaron. Any other questions with the financials?
Okay.
I hadn't
The other
seen-
slide in the
I hadn't-
financials, sorry,
Go ahead.
the other slide in the financials, excuse me, shows the funds that are still in the county and they act as our finance department for those funds. The 286 fund is the original bonds that were sold, and this is the debt service that is managed through the 286 fund. Where currently we pay about $70,000 a month in debt service. The 968 is our operations fund for our normal expenses. And the KPFD holding fund is the main fund where the funds from the state, our sales tax rebate is collected and accumulated. And as you can see at this point, it's up to $3.3 million. Any questions?
You know, I'm going to ask a question I've wanted to ask for a long time.
Sure.
So enlighten me on this. On the bond fund, it shows ending cash balance and then it grows each month as an asset to us. So is there actually a cash balance in
There is not a cash balance. It's been explained to me as part of the bonding process. We have sold bonds based on the valuation of the property that was constructed. Even though we don't own it, it's still shown as a liability against the property, and we carry that balance on our balance sheet. Doesn't make sense to me either, but that's the way it's been explained to me. There's actually much less than $5.9 million that's left to be paid on the bonds that were sold.
So can anybody help me with that? I mean, it looks like we started January 1st at 5.4. And it's growing. So I was assuming it was going to wipe out a bond amount, but Mike, as you just said, we owe less than 5.9. So I don't understand how the bond stuff works on this sheet.
Yeah. I'll have Susan give you a call and talk with you about that. And maybe I should listen in too, so that I can understand and explain it better than I did.
Okay.
Can I ask to be included in that too, please, Mike?
Pardon?
This is John. Can I be included in that call,
Sure.
please?
Sure.
Is it possible to make that part of a meeting? Because I think we'd all like to know.
All right. I will invite Susan then to come and explain it to us at the October meeting.
I think that's a good idea, Phil.
All right. You got it.
Other questions on the financials?
I didn't have a chance because the only outstanding item I had was from our last meeting to better understand where we're at with those commitments. But it looks like you made that amendment to the bylaws, or not the bylaws, I'm sorry, looking at the next item.
To the minutes.
To the minutes that were provided, so that I could get a better understanding of what's on the balance sheet and or income statement.
Yeah, I'll also send out an update of that section of the minutes where I covered those items. I've done an update of that, and I will send that out to the board, showing the removal of the $500,000 for the parks. And I've also talked with Nick. I've exchanged emails with Nick Bond and talked with Eric Baker. They're in the process of reassessing their timeline for the construction of the ride park and the other items in their to-do list. So I think we'll get a different perspective of what the timeline on any expenses will be for the county project at Port Campbell Heritage Park.
Question for Brian. Brian, we have an email from Jim Dunwoody asking or sharing that they're releasing us from that 500,000. I guess number one, have you seen that email?
I have.
And then number two, does that legally release us from, I guess, our agreement as a board that we would earmark that money for Lobie Field, or do we need any other kind of documentation just to make sure that that is completed?
A good question. Thank you. I think Jim Dunwitty's email will suffice. And the reason I think that is the prior commitment of funds was really conditioned on certain things happening, including preparing an ILA, which has never happened. So I think the prior commitment was a well, called an informal or a tentative commitment. So I think if we're being released from that, we're fine.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on the financial statements?
I had one more as well, and it's just because I'm new to the board, I think. Do we have any year-long cash flow projections that I could get my hands on, and/or I believe prior to the RFP process on this last go-around, as I understood through talking with some other board members, there was some information around bonding and what we could or could not look at as opposed to capacity. If that could be shared with me as well, please.
I'll send you our eye chart, which is it's a big Excel spreadsheet which shows the income and expenditures to date, and it shows the forecast of what we think or what the financial advisors and us have think is going to happen. So I'll be happy to share that with you and Phil. The other board members typically have that spreadsheet, but I'll be happy to send it to you two guys.
Yeah, you know what, Mike, would you just resend it out, because that way I don't have to go find the original?
Okay. Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, on to item number B, the blanket voucher for the KPFD expenses. It's $9,009. You can see the detail there. Can I have a motion to approve this voucher?
Motion moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on it?
Who was the original motion? I apologize.
John, I believe.
Okay.
Aaron seconded it.
Yep, got that.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Approval of the blanket voucher. And then for the project voucher approval, item number C, this is for $15,286. I believe it's the first that we've received from the city of Paulsbo for what we've earmarked towards the PERC or the Event and Recreation Center.
Yeah, it's the first three invoices, basically for July, August, and September, predominantly for the consultant Pertit, who was selected to do their feasibility study, their design, and customer or community feedback.
And then can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Aaron. Second?
Seconded.
All right. Now, any discussion, any questions that you have?
Yeah, it looks like the sum's a little bit off. Not much, though.
Thank you, Pat, for the quick math. Yeah, 75 cents and 50 sure doesn't add up to 75 cents.
No,
so
not much.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I think that was 25 when I read it and wrote it down as 75 instead of 25.
You are correct.
all right. With that correction made, we have a motion correct by Aaron. We have a second. Do we have a second?
John?
Yeah, it's correct up on the
Okay.
top line, but it's correct, not correct on the bottom line. So that was my error.
So then any other discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Voucher is approved. Moving on to item number 5 of new business. This is something that we, through a number of different discussions, have over the last number of months too, with the issues that we're facing because of the COVID pandemic and other discussions, have asked Brian to review and revise our bylaws. And so today he is going to present those revisions to us and the rationale for them. You can ask any questions you want. We will not be voting on this tonight, but give us all some time to, again, read and think through, and then we will bring it for a vote then at our October meeting to officially vote and revise our bylaws. But at this point, Brian, the floor is yours, and please share.
Thank you, Darren. So by quick way of background, the PFD adopted bylaws shortly after formation in 2001. And the purpose of the bylaws was just to create governing rules for how it would operate, consistent both with state law requirements and good operating practices. 2011, we went back and updated the bylaws, made a few small changes. I think based on mostly just observed practices that needed to be better defined. Here we are in 2020, and we're coming forward with, I think, 5 discrete amendments, some of which, again, are just observed from our practices and wanting to formalize those. And some of them are driven, as Darren said, by what's happened this year, changes in laws, in terms of operation of public agencies, and it's time, I think, to memorialize those sorts of changes. So with that, I'm just going to skip. There's a couple little nits in there that you may see, and I'm going to ignore the nits. I'm going to kind of jump to the substance. So the first significant change would be on page 3, section 4.7, committees. In the past, the bylaws just express kind of a generic statement that the board could from time to time create a standing committee or an ad hoc committee and so on. But in terms of observance of practice, in recent years, the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the executive director tend to meet between meetings, and it's important and appropriate they do so because there's business that needs to be thought through and organized and so on in advance of actual meetings. So this came up as an issue about 20 months ago when our relations with Kitsap County were less amiable than they are now, due to, I think, a lot of, I'll just call it turbulence about getting involved in the circuit of the Northwest with the Port of Bremerton. And Mike and I received a very extensive public records request from the county that took us a couple of months to complete. And one of the side issues in there was, so who are these people that are meeting? And we want all their records, and what authority do they have? And so it just made sense at this point to say, we do have an executive committee. Here's who's on it. They meet to facilitate the work of the board. And then the last sentence I'm recommending there is to make clear that the executive committee has no authority to take any action that binds the district. So that's my proposal number 1. And if anyone has questions now, I'll take them before I move to the next one. Or if you want to wait on your questions, that's fine too.
Well, why don't we take them as we go? And then if anybody has another, if something comes to mind later, we can always add that at the end. But that way we'll keep it connected. Any questions on that particular piece? All right, Brian, looks good.
Okay, so if we move on to the next Article 5 on meetings, and on the next page, there's a section 5.3, notice of regular board meetings. So what is there now conforms to both practice and the Open Public Meetings Act. What I'm proposing to add, that one sentence that says, the KPFD shall further make the agenda of each regular meeting of the governing body available online no later than 24 hours in advance of the published start time of the meeting. That's actually a change in the Open Public Meeting Act, and since 2011. So I think it's important that we confirm and announce and remind ourselves in our own bylaws of this requirement.
My question with that would be, is 24 hours the standard that that open public meetings requires?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the state standard. There's no reason we couldn't do more than that. That is, make it 48, 36, 48, 72, whatever. But the minimum would be a 24-hour posting of the agenda.
Yeah, that was my thought of making it longer. And the reason is that I think with all of these kind of meetings where you're wondering what goes on at that meeting and is it worth my time to show up and observe the whole thing? And sometimes I think people feel like I almost have to be there all the time or else they're going to put something on the agenda and push it through without kind of letting the public speak to it or know about it. And so it seems like the longer the amount of time, the better, just for transparency and allowing all the people of Kitsap County to know what we're doing. Any thoughts on that? 24 hours seem good? Longer?
My thought would be to keep it at 24 hours just from a practical standpoint in case something comes up, but certainly maybe internally have a policy of putting it at 48 or 36. I mean, this becomes a binding document. So if
Right.
something comes up, I would say just to give us the most flexibility, keep it at 24, but then certainly say we'd like to get it out 48 or whatever we say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The actual practice is that the agenda for the next meeting is typically in place a week after the last meeting in draft form. And that typically winds up being pretty much what is on the agenda. Usually Darren and I talk in the latter part of the week before, so there may be a change in the final agenda on Monday, and that's typically posted to the website as well as available at the meeting. But yeah, it may not be 24 hours because the change may happen on Monday morning. But in most cases, it's 75 or 80% or more correct the weekend before.
And maybe my only other suggestion would be to say, available online no later than 24 hours, blah, 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 or as otherwise required by the Open Public Meetings Act. I mean, if they revise it in, 2 years to make it 48 hours, we don't have to come back and revise the bylaws.
Smart.
That's a good point.
And Brian, with 24 hours, we would be saying that Friday at 5:30 would be the 24-hour time period if our Monday meeting was going to be at 5:30. Is that correct, rather than Sunday or Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Does there need to be anything that's in there that says if we change, we have the ability to change it last minute? I know, like when you go to City of Bremerton council meetings, right? They say they're out there so far in advance. However, there could be last minute changes up to 30 minutes ahead of time.
And then that certainly is possible. I mean, there was a 5.2 item on this agenda up until 2 hours before the meeting time when Patty Graff Hope called and said that she wanted to take her proposal off the agenda until next month. So at her request, I took that item off, but that was only 2 hours before meeting time.
Brian,
The only difference would have been that, I could have left it on the meeting, on the agenda, and just noted on the final copy that item had been withdrawn.
Brian, this language would preclude us from adding something within the last 24 hours, even if it were somehow, very pertinent to maybe an ongoing project or something. But
Yeah,
it would actually stop us from acting on something if it wasn't on that agenda 24 hours ahead of time.
So how I've seen this addressed in the past is that the agenda that you publish gets changed at the meeting itself when someone brings a motion to amend the agenda. So rather than an administrative thing where Mike takes something off the agenda or put something on, you start with the agenda that you published, and then again, somebody brings a motion to amend.
All right.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So next item is at the bottom of page 4, electronic meetings. So this certainly is something that has come about or come into very sharp focus earlier this year with COVID-19 and Governor Inslee's directives to ban in-person meetings, which of course conflicts greatly with the Open Public Meetings Act. So that there's been a fair amount of kind of legal discussion about how to thread that needle. So here we go, threading the needle. First of all, we're going to add a section about electronic meetings. We're going to state in subparagraph A that it's the general policy of the district to comply with the OPMA, which generally requires in-person meetings. So we're gonna state, restate, emphasize that the default position is to have in-person meetings. I don't know if we need to say it, but I think we should say it, and it's there in our bylaws. So there's no question among the public as to what our frontline position is on meetings. Part B, remote participation by board members. So this has been a topic of discussion without resolution for years, both in our organization and others, and that is, can individual board members participate remotely by conference call? And while there's no definitive legal guidance on this, the Attorney General's office in 2017 wrote an opinion that says basically what I've said there, that from time to time, in kind of an exigent circumstance, one or more board members could participate remotely by conference call. It's the exception rather than the rule, and it's where attendance is not feasible or practical, such as while traveling during a period of illness or disability, inclement weather, and similar circumstances. I basically copied extensively in that section B the language that's in the Attorney General's opinion. So So that answers a question that we've had for a long time, which is, you know, if it's in February and there's an ice storm over in a particular area and it's just not safe for a particular board member or a couple board members to get in their cars and drive over, they can still participate in the meeting. Or while traveling, it opens that option as well. So that's B. And then C is fully remote meetings, which is what we're doing now and have been doing for most of this year. So again, what I've done here is tracked the language and the concepts that have been in Governor Inslee's order. And then I've added the final sentence that says, such meetings shall be conducted in accordance with the then current guidance from the Office of the Attorney General. So again, this authorizes us to do what we're doing, the fully remote meetings, but they're rare rather than common. And if we do them, we're going to use the technology that allows the public to attend remotely. So questions or comments? Hearing none, I'm going to move on. 7.6 on page 6. It's becoming a more common practice commercially, and I guess in government as well, to migrate to electronic signatures. There was a statute adopted by the legislature in 2016 that I'm not sure many government agencies ever followed or adopted or utilized. There was a more comprehensive law passed last year that went into effect June 11 of this year, addressing the issue of electronic signatures. So what I've done here is first have a declaration of policy that the PFD will use electronic signatures to the fullest extent allowed by law, except when a wet signature is required. That declaration of policy is a requirement of the new statute. Then in B, I took a stab at saying, so who's going to be authorized to use electronic signatures? And my thought here was that it would be basically the people who end up signing things. So it's the executive committee, the chair, the vice chair, executive director, to the extent he is authorized to sign various documents, and legal counsel to the extent I'm authorized to sign certain documents. And then I reference using an industry standard electronic platform, which again, I think is language in the statute. Most people are using something called DocuSign, but I think it's just better that we use a broad statement there rather than lock ourselves into one technology. So I'm going to raise a question on this. I was looking through the packet of materials for tonight, and I noticed that on a voucher, other board members were signing electronically. So I think I've got a question. Should we?
That was going to be my question too, Brian. Why limit it to anyone on why not have it just be anyone on the board?
Yeah.
For that exact blanket voucher example.
And Brian, under A, I just see a small typo.
Oh, thank you.
Second to last line, electronic signature may be used, should be may be used.
Thank you. You know, I read these things time and time again, and I still miss a thing here or there. So Thank you.
Does anybody see any reason why we wouldn't include all board members in that statement?
No.
No.
Everybody should be able to sign electronically.
Yeah. I will make that change. I just didn't realize the other board members sign things. So that's
actually do. Yeah.
Simply my bad. Okay, and then the last one, section 7.7, is the form of documents. And Mike and I looked at this earlier this year, and we were looking at who signs, the important documents of the PFD, and how are they signed. And there's a couple, and if you look at how other governmental agencies are signing documents, there's kind of two issues that come into play. One is attestation, which is the notion that the signature of the board chair, who's ever signing as the official representative, which typically is the board chair, but could be the vice chair. On many governmental documents, you'll see a signature line for attestation, which is simply another executive board officer signing to authenticate the signature of the board chair. It's not required for the PFD, and it's not required for many governmental documents, but many agencies use it as a practice anyway. So I think we had a discussion about this several months ago, and the sense of the board was, whether we need it or not, it's a good practice. So let's add the requirement of attestation to our important documents, which are resolutions, amendment to bylaws, interlocal agreements, contracts with third-party providers of goods and services, and then kind of a catch-all for any other documents designated by the board. So that's attestation. The other kind of convention is having a signature line for the legal counsel of the entity, and it's called approval of form or approval as to form. And it's a convention where an agency's legal counsel signs that the document's been reviewed for legality, not the merits or the substance, but the legality of the form and the content of the document. Again, I can find nothing in any statute that actually requires that practice on the district. But again, most of our partners, other governmental agencies, use that. And I've talked to some city attorneys, and they simply say it's part of their internal review process. So by the time the document is prepared for final signature, the entity knows that someone's run it by the entity's legal counsel. So again, the sense of the board several meetings ago, and I know we have new board members on, but the sense of the board several meetings ago is it would be a good practice to add both attestation signatures and approval of form signatures on our important documents. So that's the purpose of 7.7.
So with the approval of form, is there, when would your signature be required? At the beginning before the other signatures go on, or could it be last?
It could be last. It could be, yeah.
Is it required to make it fully executed, though? Your signature would be required?
And if we put it in the bylaws, yes.
Okay.
And looking back over the years, various documents, sometimes the PFD used both attestation and approval of form. Sometimes it used one, sometimes it used the other, sometimes it used neither. So again, the idea here would be to create a pattern and a practice.
And that's something that I've propagated. If the resolution that may be put forth, if I'm copying the format of a resolution and it has an attestation on it, I would put that into that resolution signature block. If it didn't, I would leave it out. So I was not consistent because there wasn't a policy, and I followed whatever the usage was on that particular type of document. So this will make it easier for me in the sense that I'll know what's supposed to be there and what form.
So that's it. Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
You will take those suggestions and friendly edits and put those in, and then send us out a final copy that we can look at over the month, and then we will put that on our agenda for October and vote on these bylaws.
Yes, I made good notes here. Started making changes while we were talking to the extent I had time. So yes, I can do that very shortly.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Let's move on to item number 6A in our ongoing business, our executive director's activity report for August.
Yeah, and it's fairly straightforward. Continued to work on all the items that were either action items or needed to be updated, or keeping abreast of what's going on with the various projects. And a couple of things I mentioned in the meeting as we were going along, that the Paulsbo project had submitted invoices. The Port Orchard project will be sending us an invoice during the next month, so that we would have an invoice from Port Orchard for $200,000, which was the upfront money that was committed in the last ILA modification that was signed off 3 months ago. So that will take place. As I mentioned, I modified our Zoom membership 3 months ago to utilize the webinar format instead of just a meeting format, which gives us a little bit more control over the meeting, and removes the necessity of, or not necessity, the opportunity to have meeting bombers come in. We covered the construction consultant. That's fairly standard. We got one of the other things at one of our sites, the Kitsap Conference Center, the general manager that was been there for a number of years, Lori, has left, and one of her assistants was promoted to shepherd a facility that's underutilized right now. Both the fairgrounds and the conference center are suffering from lack of events, but it's not zero. They are having some events under certain circumstances and under the distancing regulations and so on. So there is some activity for them to take advantage of. I've been going through a process of upgrading our security for our digital processes and in a replacement of our company PC. The security portion of it has gone all right, and we now have better internet security, web security for our activities, but the PC upgrade has not gone well, and so I've told the consultant that was working with us that I'm going to be returning the PC that he had provided, and will be purchasing a new PC, and still continue to transfer files and establish a new personal computer workstation for the corporation. Let's see. I had prepared and delivered 2 directors' manuals to the new directors. Working with them currently to get the digital signatures and conflict of interest forms completed. I got a couple of submissions today. So I will continue to complete that.
Why don't we allow everybody to look through the regional facility reports? But for the new regional facility reports, do we have a representative of Port Orchard here? Did that materialize?
Yeah, Nick Bond is here. Let me stop sharing and we'll get everybody up on the screen here. And I will let's see here. Okay, I've promoted Nick up to panelist and is available to speak if you wish. If Nick's still there.
Yeah, I'm here. Was there a specific question or did you just want a brief update on the project?
I think a brief update. You and I had exchanged some emails and I think Darren was asking if there was a representative here to give any further information more than I did.
All right. Well, real quick, we, as was mentioned earlier, we selected Rice Ferguson Miller as the architect for the project, and we kicked the project off in the beginning of August. The last month has been spent narrowing down possible sites so that we can do our site evaluation, and we have narrowed it to 3 locations. One of those is the existing Kitsap Bank location. One of them is between the existing Kitsap Bank and the City Hall property on the uphill side of Bay Street. And then the other site is where the Myrie's Restaurant and Library are located, closer to the ferry terminal. And so we are now in a constraints analysis with our engineers looking at all the pros and cons of each of those sites. While we have started working on the constraints analysis, we've also begun our public process. And so tomorrow night, the City Council will be voting on a public participation program. And so we are publicly and transparently trying to outline exactly what our outreach will look like and who is involved, what the project is. And we've made extra efforts to make sure that it is inclusive as possible. And so we've been working with the library. They have a lot of they have a closer connection in the community to know which groups are active and would be participating. And so they've really helped us identify some of the people that need to be involved in that project. So the survey is going to be on our website by next Monday, and we will be doing our first bit of outreach talking about programming the building. And we're mostly asking questions about the type of space that people want to see, what sorts of features they want. We are staying away from right now questions that would steer the site selection until we have a better understanding from an engineering and technical standpoint what each site offers before we start diving in with the public into the specifics of any one site. So finance has mentioned, and I think you reported that we'll be requesting the $200,000 per our amended agreement so that we can start paying the bills that have been coming in on this project. So that should be to you by our next meeting. And with that, I guess, John, Mr. Morrissey has been added to our stakeholder committee, and so he's going to be attending whenever he's available. We have biweekly team meetings, and he is now included on that process. So he's taking an active role in the project.
Yeah, that was something I looked at.
I never thought I would know about sewers.
Yeah, that was something I noticed on their committee. We did not have a representative on there, and I thought it was valuable to have our Port Orchard representative participate, and so I made that suggestion, and I appreciate that the mayor had made that appointment.
Thank you, Nick, for coming and sharing.
You're welcome.
Mike, any other new projects or reports from new projects?
There's nobody here from Paulsbo, but basically we've gotten their progress report and the fact that they're doing things and they're sending us invoices for payment. So if you want, I have been talking to them, and we'll set up a mechanism now that both Port Orchard and Paulsbo are in full operation of their initial phase to make sure that the steering committee either A, has a representative on it, or B, provides us with a report either monthly or every other month as appropriate for the amount of work that's being done.
And then,
That's good.
oh, go ahead, Darren.
I was going to say, I just was going to ask the rest of the board, you know, we get a written report. Was that helpful to hear directly from Mr. Bond and to hear what's going on? Does it help you connect more to the projects or even give you an opportunity to ask questions? Is that something you'd like to see on an every other month basis, where we just even alternate, or an every month basis, you know, for every meeting that we do at least? What is your opinion?
I like having someone be able to speak to it, especially if there's something that's going on that, you know, it's not just there's no change from last month. That we don't need that. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to stay in touch. I think it does bring the projects a little more to life for us.
I think every other month is fine, but as Aaron said, if there's nothing going on, they can maybe let Mike know that, so we don't waste their time just to show up and, you know.
Yeah.
Or we could do it every third month and include the Heritage Park and get a rep from them.
Like to hear that. Right.
All right, thank you. We'll see to that.
Yeah. So last meeting we had talked and we tabled what I was talking about with the Port of Bremerton project. So I assume that's kind of ongoing business also, to be able to talk about that, because I have a lot more questions.
No, it's not ongoing business. We made a concerted effort to not have it be, because we don't have that Bainbridge Island representative who has been put forward by their city council. And so we can certainly talk about it, but to take any action on it, I think we need a full board. And so we're intentionally not having that discussion tonight, so that we can hopefully have that Bainbridge Island representative for the next meeting, and then be able to continue that discussion with a full board.
So do we have any certainty that they will be placing a Bainbridge Island person? Or because
we have no certainty of when they will.
So
but I did put in calls last week to both their city manager and to their city council person who sits as their mayor, just saying we need that person on the board, and so please, you know, see to it so that we can move forward.
I spoke with the mayor today, and she assured me that they would work diligently to try to get a person appointed in time to make the commissioners meeting to where they can be then ratified in order to get to our October meeting. They're correct. There is no guarantee that that's going to happen, but the mayor did say that she was going to attempt to do that. They have some other issues that slowed down their process that don't relate to us, except that we're caught in the slowdown.
So can we do this if that's plan on that happening, can we put that discussion about the Port of Bremerton on next month's agenda? And if they're not here, they're not here, but you know, who knows when they'll get there if they don't, but if they're here, then great, but at least it's on the agenda to discuss, just so it doesn't keep getting kicked down the, you know, the pipe because of Bainbridge.
Yeah, I don't think we should set ourselves up for some kind of a position that we won't, you know, have this discussion if Bainbridge doesn't send a representative, so that they're somehow in control of this process, right? That's not the intention here, but it is the intention that we spent 18 months going through a process that led to decisions with all 7 representatives. And now there is a new request, and there are many different aspects of this to discuss. And so, yeah, so I don't really want to say that we're going to do it one way or the other, but that we will certainly try and make that happen for October. That is the desire, to have the discussion.
We don't have any restrictions that say we are required to have 7 people, correct?
No.
So, but I understand what you're saying about wanting to have all parties involved for any discussions about giving out. I get that. There's a couple of things I did want to get lined up, and I don't know if everybody else on the board has heard, but C-Stock is actually going to become part of the Port of Bremerton. They found a home there. It was funny that Shannon brought up the school that he got brought into, because I believe that was the base where C-Stock was hoping to land. And when everything fell apart, I think they lost their home there.
We have a representative, Stacy Saunders from C-Stock, that's here, that requested to talk during the public comment period. So
do you want to wait to hear from her for that, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
What else did you want to say, Erin? And then let's move to public comment.
Yeah, so here's the other thing, and it really goes back to money, the most important part of what we're all talking about with this. Based on some of the numbers that Mike's been given and talking to some people about the different projects, I was looking at time frames. You know, when's the money due? Right now, everything we're paying out of cash. We've talked about bonding, whether we're going to bond in-house or whether we're going to have the entities that are going to be, you know, the port, the county, the cities, whatever they are, do the bonding themselves. I don't think we've ever talked about at what point we start saying, okay, we can't write another $200,000 check. You know, we need to start bonding this stuff and spreading the money out over a longer distance. Did we ever really look at that?
Well, I would say yes, in the sense of our financial advisors have given us multiple projections based on different assumptions.
Right.
So we have looked at that, and we have had the schedule. I believe Bill had put forward a schedule. I had put forward a schedule of how we would actually pay for these projects based on cash flow. If in both of our presentations were, if we did not bond, if we bonded for a minimum amount, which for Phil and John, who weren't part of those discussions, the rationale is if we bond at 2%, and this is before COVID, but 14.5 million was about the amount that we would bond for over 15 years if we did it ourselves. If we did not do that and allowed that revenue stream to come in from the sales tax rebate, we would have close to 45 million. Now, those are projections based on very conservative assumptions of 2% growth over those 15 years, when in fact, since we've begun, we have had greater than that. And as Walt even pointed out, you know, we had our largest one this month in the midst of our COVID pandemic. So, you know, that being said, 45 million allows us to do a lot more projects. And so that is why Bill and I both were trying to put that forward as the way to do our financing. was to have the different projects finance that money, and then we would be, reimbursing for expenses rather than being the ones to take the bond. So in those ways, I think we have had that discussion, but for how we continue to pay the next bill once we're done with cash, no, we haven't had that discussion.
I think that's important. I think we're getting to that point because I'm looking at what's due like within the next, say, 9 months, what's due a year after that and another year after that. And, projecting it out based on, I think we're at 3.3 million that we've got right now. And I know that when we were looking at the project with the port, granted it's number 4 in our hierarchy, but it's also got an immediate nature. And we're talking to them. Hang on, I got to find the right piece of paper. They're still looking for 1.4, basically 1.44 million for design and construction fees to get it started, with the idea of knowing that there may not be any more money after that, but it gets the project moving along still, and it doesn't stay solid, stuck in the water like it is now. I don't want to give up on this project. I think this project's just going to do a huge amount for Kitsap County. And I don't know what to say about the Bainbridge Island waiting for someone. I understand. I'd like them to be a part of these discussions too. I don't know how long I'm willing to wait for them. If they get someone in this month, that would be great. If this comes up again next month and they haven't been able to settle on something, I think we need to have this conversation. How do you guys feel about talking about this other project too?
I think in the great scheme of things, 1.4 is pretty much peanuts, and we should prevail on the port to fund it, and we can then reimburse the Port of Bremerton to service their debt. You do 1.4 over the next 15 years, it's less than $10,000 a month. And, we got much more than that coming in every month.
I would be remiss if I didn't have some input to say, fully understanding our capacity to bond out and what that looks like. I would hate to leave money on the table if, we're constraining ourselves at, I think 16 million, I don't know the exact total, I'd have to look at that, compared to 45 total capacity. I get that that's probably best case scenario, but are we leaving the opportunity to fund something? Now, that being said, I also fully believe in making sure that we've explored every option to ensure that we meet the obligations that we've already set forth. But I need more information on the bonding stuff that I've asked Mike to provide. So I would hope to get that before our next meeting and be able to discuss that and have a more intelligible conversation.
Yeah, you'll get that
I would
information.
have to know that we can.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd have to know that we'd be able to bond the other 3 projects, 1, then 2, then 3, before giving money to number 4. I'm not sure we're going to have enough money to fund 1, 2, and 3 yet, let alone go to 4.
But with the numbers, if they're bonding, I think the numbers that we felt like we could do, we're way under still if they bond, what we can afford to reimburse for.
And I don't know at what point, not to interrupt, Aaron, that bond study was done. I assume prior to 2020 and COVID, and rates have declined since then. These would, by all in effect, be municipal bonds, which generally go for lower than the going rate as well. So we're probably even more favorable rate condition right now than we were at the time of the study. So I'd like to maybe see if that should be updated as well.
From what I'm hearing, it sounds like people do want to discuss this further. And I think that sounds like this is a good discussion to have at the next meeting, because people do
need more information and certainly have thoughts to share on it. So I would say let's definitely put it on for that.
2 points of information I'd like to add. One, I have had discussions with our financial advisor, and they're going to provide information for me and for us, for the board, for the October meeting. I'll get it within the next week or so, and I'll provide that to the executive committee, and if they recommend it, send it out to all of the board. The second thing is that in the discussion with the mayor of Bainbridge today, she did inform me that they only had one applicant for the position that they wanted to propose. And I asked them, who that was, and it turns out it's Tom. So he is likely to get reappointed. I'm not sure why they couldn't take the step to make that a little more accelerated, since he was the representative before. But they said they wanted to go through their interview process and make their appointment. But she said they will try to make that as expeditiously as she can request that it be done, and hope that we can get him through the commissioner verification and appointment process early next month, so that he's in place by the October meeting.
So is on the update, it's great that you're updating the bond information. I think that's very timely. Does it need to just go to executive committee first, or could it just go to all of us, or do you guys want to review it first?
Can go straight to the board.
Yeah. Give us a little more time to look at it.
Okay, will do.
Okay, with that, let's get into public comment and close our meeting for tonight. Mike, do you have a list of people who would like to speak?
I don't have a list at this time. Let me start off with Stacy Saunders, and then if there are other people that wish to make public comment, you can do it through the Q&A link on your screens, and put a request in.
I see a hand up for Jerry McDonald. They can just put their hand up and you will give them access.
So,
for those who would like to speak, please do remember it is 3 minutes, and I'll set my timer here and stop you at that time.
And I will start with Stacy, and I will also bring on Jerry McDonald. So Stacy first, there she is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for including me tonight, and Aaron for the introduction as well. I know several of you, and those of you who do know me, know that I talk about CStock a lot. Very passionate about community theater and what it does for our families and for students in arts education. It's a project that I've been very committed to for a number of years, particularly as it pertains to bringing live theater entertainment and some cultural identity to right here in our own backyard. And I think that's really important because we can get around those trips across the water for things that we can be doing and enjoying here. So CStock has been in the community for 35 years now. And we, for a number of years, performed at the old A-Frame Community Center, the Silverdale Community Center. Yeah. Right, until the county evicted us. That was torn down, and we lost that little piece of community history back in 2016. And since then, CStock doesn't have as much of a presence in some ways. We've kind of been gypsies. We've performed at a lot of different locations. Kitsap Mall, actually, over the years, the Golf and Country Club, the Best Western, various schools. And then also in 2016, as we began kind of looking for some backup plans, our board took this big leap of faith and said, you know what, we're going to step it up and we're going to launch a capital campaign for a new facility. You heard a little bit about that in Aaron's comments. And as we worked toward that campaign, we actually got pretty good at it. We got into a partnership with Central Kitsap School District, and in the past couple of years raised over $3 million in state funding and private funding that otherwise would not have come to Kitsap County without this project. We also have a multi-year pledge from the Kitsap County Commissioners to support a path forward for arts in the community. So a lot going on with the project. And unfortunately, as Aaron kind of indicated, that project with the school district kind of came to a halt earlier this year when the school district unfortunately declined to move forward because of funding shortfalls. To say that we were disappointed after all that work is, I mean, it's a vast understatement. We've always had this attitude that the show must go on. It has gone on. Our joke now is that we're working on Plan Z, because I think we've exhausted just about all the other letters in the alphabet. But this plan and this project with Circuit of the Northwest and Port of Bremerton came along at just the right time, because of course, our show didn't go on this year. Nobody's show went on this year. It couldn't. And I do think that COVID is going to permanently change the way that people gather for community activities. So to that end, CSOC's board has acknowledged and recognized a new strategic goal of ensuring that any facility that we construct is going to be much more flexible in terms of allowing for social distancing, both for our patrons and for our students and our performers and our backstage crews. So I think it's going to require a very significant paradigm shift for performing arts, and we believe it's time to evolve. And that's particularly true as we watch as other community center projects, big projects, are being stopped in their tracks. A couple examples, the Washington State Convention Center over in Seattle stopped right in the middle of construction. They're on pause due to declining attendance, and now they're looking for a bailout. Teatro Zanzani, another one that we love, was looking to rebuild over in the old Red Hook Brewery facility in Woodinville. That's on pause now too, because they couldn't keep up with their operating budget and sustain things during all the closures. So those are some sad stories. I do think things are changing. I think there's also some lessons to be learned as we move forward. And for us, I think thanks to some really great community relationships, we were approached to join the Circuit of the Northwest and Port of Bremerton project. We have now very quickly entered into some preliminary agreements over the past month or so for an indoor-outdoor stage and amphitheater that is going to offer us options to continue performances even when other indoor facilities have to be shut down. Not just now, but it's looking toward the future and how can we accommodate the way things are changing in terms of how people gather. So this will be designed as a shared, multi-purpose community facility, gives us a sustainable long-term home. We don't have to purchase land. We don't have site preparation costs. We're sharing design and construction with the other partners in the project, and our ongoing maintenance is going to be part of that larger facility budget. So it's a really exciting solution. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to talk about it. And you guys are kind of the first to hear about it. It's brand new news, and we wanted to make sure that you got it first because I know this is part of your considerations and your discussions moving forward. I think that this is a great fit for a number of reasons. First of all, because when you look to the RCW for funding these types of community event facilities, we're right there listed as musical and theatrical performances in event facilities. I think it's also a very exciting opportunity to create something unique that doesn't exist in our community. And I think it also responds very well to the rapidly changing community needs that we have. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Thanks again to Mike for the invitation. We have, if you have questions, a number of other folks who are also listening in tonight. Our board president, Brandon Myers, is standing by, along with, I understand, Port of Bremerton CEO Jim Rothland is present, and Commissioner Axel Strackeljan as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stacy. Jerry McDonald, is he live?
Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah, Mike, you're on mute.
And Jerry's on mute too.
You're right. I apologize. I was coughing and I didn't want to interrupt, but
Can you hear me?
Jerry is now
Yep.
unmuted.
Okay.
And then, Jerry, 1 second, and this isn't your time at all, but Mike, could you also take off Stacy and Joel from the panelists?
Okay, I
And
will do that.
Jerry, the floor is yours.
Perfect. I know Aaron was talking about the Port of Bremerton, and I've been excited about that Port of Bremerton for several years now. And I heard a day or two ago about the sea stock, and that's just another giant thing for the whole complex out there. And I hope you guys really understand what all of that stuff is going to do for the community. No question about it. The other thing that I have is a suggestion. At the end of your meetings, you have public comment. You know, depending on what you're talking about, maybe you'd like to hear part of the public comment at the beginning of it, so it's incorporated into your discussions, and maybe again at the end. I don't know, but that's just a thought that I've had, in several organizations that I've had do have public comments in the beginning.
Thank you, Jerry.
And we have done so in the past. When we went to the webinar format, we decided to do that to see how things were working, and we can discuss to change back to the early part if the board so commits. So
Would it be worthwhile doing both? You know, obviously depending on what the topics are and the subject matter, but
I guess we can consider that amongst the board and see if that would be the will of the board. But thank you for your comment now. I see Jim Rothland has his hand up.
where's Jim?
I see him under attendees at the very top,
Yep,
with a hand up.
okay. Yeah, I do. There he is. And Jim has been cleared to join. And
All right.
we'll
Okay.
Jim, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Loud and clear. Am I out there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Great. And I won't take much of your time. I appreciate the meeting. I appreciate the discussion. It is, yes, great news about C-Stock and what they're planning to do. Just a reminder that the commissioners are very committed to this project. For us, it is beneficial. The sooner the decision made is better, only because with budget time coming, that's a good chunk of change that we'll be wanting to figure out if we're going to commit for this year's budget or not. So I appreciate you guys having this discussion. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing no hand raised, I am going to adjourn the meeting. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy your evenings. And we will see you back here on October 26th at 5:30.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.